Thanks for joining me for episode 10 of Cybersecurity Kept Simple 24/7 365. Today we're going to look at the evolution of malware, from pranks on early computers to the devastating high-impact attacks that we see in the modern digital world. The first reported instance of malware was in 1971. A worm was developed that printed a harmless message on the screen of infected systems. This was done in ARPANET, the predecessor to the Internet. The user base of ARPANET would have been massively different to the Internet, consisting of computer scientists, graduate students, ARPA-funded engineers and researchers. The impact on systems infected with early types of malware was primarily resource consumption, often grinding systems to a halt. Destructive malware started to appear in 1987 with viruses such as Jerusalem, which deleted all .exe and .com files of an infected system every Friday the 13th. Shamoon is a more recent example of destructive malware, when 30,000 Saudi Aramco workstations were infected, causing massive disruption and forcing the company into a recovery that took weeks. Ransomware made its first appearance in 1989 with the AIDS Trojan, and we started to see early versions of password stealers and credential harvesters in the early 90s. Profit through resource abuse malware appeared in the early 2000s with botnets for spam and click fraud malware. A rat is a remote access Trojan that gives the attacker full remote control of a system. Fortunately, most types of rats and malware associated with criminality will fail against a fully patched and protected system with a vigilant operator. All bets are off if you are up against Stateware. Your attacker is part of a highly skilled ecosystem, and your system can't defend against threats it doesn't know about. Once a rat is installed in a system, it will attempt to connect back to its controller. In this demo, the malware is using port 4444, and we can see the attacker or control system accepting the connection from the victim. Malware that initiates an outbound connection from an internal system sometimes succeeds if the outbound security policy is 2 laps. Once the rat has connected the infected PC to the controller, the attacker is able to exfiltrate data, view webcams, and perform lots of other tasks, ranging from prank-like actions to mindless destruction like erasing all data volumes. In this case, the attacker is watching what the victim is doing in real time. The attacker is running Linux while the victim has Windows. Fortunately, a fully patched current system with endpoint protection enabled and a cognizant operator is unlikely to get infected with rats or any type of Crimeware malware. In this demonstration, the install and operation of the malware was only successful as I disabled endpoint protection on the victim device. The most common type of malware when I started my IT career was viruses. Although a pain in the arse to combat, a lot of the viruses at that time triggered harmless and funny visual effects like inverting the user's screen rather than anything nasty. It was really more digital mischief than anything criminal. Once criminals and state actors started to play in the sandpit, malware evolved from being fun to being the heart of cybercrime, whilst also exposing civilians to Orwellian-style surveillance and allowing rogue states to create cyber weapons of mass destruction. The first confirmed, publicly attributed instance of state-developed spyware was GhostNet in 2009. GhostNet was a purpose-built rat developed by Chinese government-linked groups designed specifically for espionage. Confirmed victims include ministries of foreign affairs, embassies, South Asian governments, and the offices of the Dalai Lama. This is the attack that phrased the term Stateware. The race to find zero-day vulnerabilities rages. The manufacturer may even offer cash bounties if white-hat hackers find and declare weaknesses or vulnerabilities. I love this idea. Top bug bounty hunters can make serious coin and play a massive part in containing cybercrime. Several commercial spyware vendors actively discover and weaponize zero-day vulnerabilities. Intelexa, built by former Israeli intelligence figures, are under US sanctions due to their commercially produced spyware Predator. Kandiro is an Israeli spyware company, also under US sanctions. But perhaps the most infamous of all these types of companies are the Israeli NSO Group. Their flagship product, Pegasus, isn't normal malware, it's a weapon. A silent zero-click exploit that provides full admin access of the device to somebody else. If a manufacturer finds a serious vulnerability, they are likely to develop and release a patch as quickly as possible. If a company like the NSO Group discovers a vulnerability, they will develop exploits and market those to authorized buyers, all the while hoping the manufacturer doesn't discover the same vulnerability and kill off their cash cow. When viewing the NSO Group's website, they claim they are committed to aligning with the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. Their core product and moneymaker, Pegasus, can compromise a phone through a missed call or silent push notification. Nothing unusual will happen to notify or concern the owner, and he will carry on as normal with no idea that state-sponsored actors have full control and visibility of his digital persona. Pegasus was designed specifically to spy on people, which is a direct contradiction of Articles 12 and 17 of the UN Human Rights provisions. Article 12 is the right to privacy. It states, "No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with their privacy, family, home, or correspondence, and everyone has the right to legal protection against such interference." Article 17 is protection from arbitrary or unlawful interference. It states that no one shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with their privacy, family, home, or correspondence, and everyone has the right to legal protection against such interference. The Israeli Ministry of Defense are the moral custodians for Pegasus. They approve purchasers and targets. As part of investigations after the barbaric Saudi Arabian state-sponsored murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, Pegasus was found on the phones of those close to him, including his fiancée, his friends, and fellow dissidents. Pegasus was never found on Jamal Khashoggi's phone, as it was apparently never examined by the host country as part of the murder investigation. Interestingly, it is reported that additional Pegasus infections occurred in his wider circle after his death, suggesting the Israeli MOD had no concerns with continuing to support the Saudi officials after the brutal murder of an innocent man. And the Spanish government learned what can happen when you crawl into bed with the devil. They used Pegasus and a few instances of Canduro to spy on at least 65 victims, including politicians, activists, lawyers, and journalists. The victims were under permanent surveillance from 2015 to 2021 in what became a political scandal in Spain known as Catalangate. However, the shoe was on the other foot when the Spanish Prime Minister and the Defense Minister were both confirmed to have Pegasus on their phones in 2021. The perpetrator has never been identified, and the Israelis have refused to cooperate in multiple investigations. Paragon Solutions are an Israeli spyware company founded in 2019. They operate at the same elite level of the commercial spyware ecosystem as NSO Group and Intellexa, but market themselves as a more responsible vendor. Paragon claimed to impose self-restricted ethical limits, such as only selling to enlightened democracies and limiting data extraction to chat app conversations, rather than full takeover. The US Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE, bought a fully configured $2 million graphite package reactivated in 2025 after a pause due to concerns of misuse. What could go wrong there, right? And I have to mention how somebody at Paragon Solutions briefly exposed their own spyware dashboard on LinkedIn, a rare slip-up in an industry built on secrecy. Users can effectively be protected from criminal malware by following best practices like keeping the operating system and all applications updated, running and updating endpoint protection, and being wary of opening attachments or links from unknown sources. State-grade spyware is designed to bypass normal security tools, hide itself, and give an operator full access to a device. It's extremely hard to defend against, as the authors of such tools essentially know something about the product that the vendor isn't aware of. It can't be fixed if they don't know it's broken. One of the simplest things a person can do if they are likely to be targeted with Stateware is to have one device for personal use and a second lockdown device for sensitive use. The objective is the same as combating criminals. You want to make it as hard as possible for the attacker, though it's unlikely state actors would give up interest as quickly as criminal ones would. Thanks for joining me for this brief journey into malware. Until next time, stay safe between the wires and don't make life easy for cyber criminals. Cheers!